See, putting a committed gun control proponent like Mr. Chipman in charge of ATF is like putting a tobacco executive in charge of the Department of Health and Human Services, or Antifa in charge of the Portland Police Department.
Or Jane Fonda as the head of the Department of Defense. I mean, they go down the list. It is absolutely true. Joe Biden's next radical endeavor here. He wants to appoint an anti-gun lobbyist by the name of David Chipman to head the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. This man would be disastrous for gun owners. His long history of demanding stricter gun control should disqualify him immediately from being in charge of an organization that enforces federal gun laws. He's taken lobbying money from anti-gun groups. Chipman testified before Congress today and made a slew of totally disturbing comments, but probably the most telling moment was this.
Now to your question. With respect to the AR-15, I support a ban as has been presented in a Senate bill and supported by the president.
It's a quick answer, but a telling one. The AR-15 is the most popular rifle in America. He wants them banned or so regulated that if you don't comply, they will come confiscate them, maybe even arrest you. So if this ban gets confirmed, the ATF goes from being a regulatory organization to being the executioner of the Second Amendment. Law-abiding gun owners take notice. Well, I want to bring in now my friend who is the executive director for the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action. Jason Ouimet is here. Jason, great to have you back on the show.
Grant, thanks for having me. Always good to be with you, my friend.
Jason, this guy's dangerous when it comes to the Second Amendment.
Downright dangerous. You got a glimpse of it today. You just talked a little bit about it right there. The exchange. I would encourage everybody to look at the exchange that he had. He had him with a lot of senators, but especially with Senator Cruz. He literally went as far as to say Dianne Feinstein's gun control or assault weapon ban bill, and he couldn't define an assault weapon, doesn't go far enough for him. Banning the most popular semi-automatic firearm out there in the AR-15 and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds doesn't go far enough for David Chipman. He literally said all of the tens of millions of firearms and the hundreds of millions of magazines that are in circulation, he wants all those registered under a gun control scheme and thrown into the NFA. Yeah. And the treat for people like you, me, others, $200 per item that you would have to register. Register 10 firearms, register 10 magazines. Do the math. $4,000 to register your own property? Yeah. Get real. Get real.
At least. Not to give away how many magazines and guns I have, but it would be far more than $4,000 going down in my gun safe right now. Outrageous.
You and a lot of other people.
He had yeah, absolutely. He had an exchange with Tom Cotton as well, who did a good job. I want you to listen to this, talking about what he deems as a, quote, assault rifle.
What is an assault weapon?
Any semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detachable magazine above the caliber of .22, which would include a .223, which is, largely the AR-15 round.
Jason, he just named almost every firearm in America today.
That's right. Literally everyone. For an administration that claims to be, quote, unifying and want to unite, bring people together, they sure picked the most divisive candidate that they could have found to run ATF. You ought to be looking for somebody who can run ATF, who can work with law-abiding citizens, who can work with law enforcement, who can work with the firearms industry, somebody who can bring those folks together, somebody who can have reasonable conversations with all of them, not somebody who's been peddling half-truths and gun control on Capitol Hill for the last decade. But that's exactly what this administration has given us.
All right, let me play you this. Marsha Blackburn, she was just on our program last night. She's been a big supporter of the Second Amendment. Here he's talking about the National Firearms Act, which basically encompasses machine guns, suppressors, those kinds of things. Listen to this.
You said, and I'm quoting you, simply reinstating the 90s-era ban on assault weapons is not enough. So I want you to tell me what is enough.
I thought, and I expressed that belief at that time, that the National Firearms Act would be a proper way to balance the rights and responsibilities of Americans.
Well, Jason, why don't you explain to everybody out there, the NFA, what that would mean to the law-abiding American today? You kind of spelled it out a little bit before, but why don't you take it?
Yeah, the short answer is enough isn't enough. It's never enough for them. They're always going to keep going. It's always going to be more. We warned about this in the election. Biden talked about this, moving all firearms, all magazines into NFA, registering every one of them, having a $200 tax stamp where you wait months, if not years, on every single one of them. And literally, like I said, you will be paying in order to do that. And they're not just going to register. It's not just a registry of the firearm or the magazine. And by the way, I'm not really sure how you're going to register a magazine. None of them are print. There's no way to do that. You're ultimately registering the individual. So you are building a massive database and expanding a massive database of gun owners. It's just completely unacceptable. We don't support it. It's not going to solve a single crime. It's not going to stop a single crime. You get nominees like David Chipman when you try and solve real-world problems with political answers, and that's exactly what you got here.
Yeah, it's a disaster. They love databases of people. Between the vaccine passports, gun registries of gun owners, you name it, this is what we're up against. I know you and your team are working hard with lawmakers right now to try to block this nomination from going through. I appreciate the work you and the NRA are doing. Jason Ouimet, always good to see you, my friend. Keep battling.
Grant, thanks for having me, my friend. Always good to be with you, and you can count on it. We will absolutely keep fighting.
You got it, and I know you will. All right, folks, it is obvious